Okay. All right, so now the methodologies, technologies, and products, as I said, there are thousands of products out there. It varies, and different companies use different technologies. Okay. Yeah, some technology issue again. All right, go manual way. Just make sure. Okay. Okay, so let's see how the real user works, right? So when we say manual testing, I mean we essentially open the follow our own instruction, and we visually identify the part of the page that we want to interact with, and then may do some action on that. So action meaning, are we clicking on a button versus are we clicking, entering some data, or clicking on a link, or and so forth. Right? So performing some action. And 99% of the time, what we do is either click on it or type something with the keyboard when we are doing the execution side of things. Okay. Now, essentially, tool does the same thing. When we talk about any tool, if you have ever used any tool like Catalan or UFT, right? Essentially, what it does, it identifies the particular element that you want to make some action on. So programmatically, it identifies the element and then perform the same action basically on those whether it's a text box or checkbox or button. So it will go and identify it and then click on it or input some data basically. Essentially, it will make an action, and finally, so that's the first part. So there are two things, right? First part is interact with and do some action. The second part is compare the outcome. Because comparing the outcome is important, right? Without that, I mean, you record the test, but if you don't put the comparison, then there is no point. Because essentially you want to see expected behavior versus the actual result and see if they match and report success or failure. Right. So that's essentially any automation tool. Okay, it's not about Ruby Cucumber. Any tool, this is how it works. Okay, all this tool. There are, as I said, there are plenty of tools out there in the market. You can name it and you will find it. But these are like Tosca, Selenium, Water, Catalan, all those things. And then there is a list of tools here, right? Now, why the Ruby Cucumber, right? Because it's a free tool, it's an open source tool, and there is no cost. When we say free, meaning there is no cost to purchase or install on your machine. That's the reason a lot of companies are going for Selenium, Water, and this type of tools. All other tools listed here, they have some cost. It could be $1,000 to could be $5,000 per license, basically. So when we talk about VSTP, the coded UI from Microsoft, you need a Visual Studio license that could itself cost you about, and it's a professional. You cannot, it doesn't come with the standard version. So it will cost you about $1,000, this particular VSTP tool. When you talk about UFT, it costs you about $3,000 per license. Okay, Smart Bear, same thing. It costs you between $1,000 to $3,000 per license. Tosca is one of the most expensive one. It has a lot more, but it's a lot easier to use.
Oh.
Because there is zero coding involved in the Tosca.
Like Catalan.
Well, Catalan is that is correct. Yeah, Catalan has
Some
you can do some coding,
yeah.
but Tosca is practically zero coding.
Oh.
Okay, and if you are interested in learning, I think we have a video published.
Yeah.
So go watch that video, how it works. And the unfortunate thing is you cannot just configure it simply. But we used to teach this Tosca Tricentis as well in the early days. Okay. And the open source APM is also there, but it's specifically used for mobile testing and so forth. Now, we will focus in this camp on Selenium and Water. Okay, so you will get to know both of those technologies. Obviously, other tools, you can pick it up. I think I have not listed here Catalan, right? Catalan is not there, but that's the one that you guys have picked up earlier. UFT one, if you guys are interested, I can point you guys to the video where you can watch it. And I think I can share the software as well. Trial license. We did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you can play around, go through the video step by step and pick it up.
And you need Windows 10, right?
Yes, Windows
Yeah.
10 for that. Yep, Windows 11, the software, the version that we have does not work on Windows 11. Okay, any question on these tools? Okay. Now, good thing about Selenium and Water, let me just emphasize that. The programming languages you see here, so Selenium pretty much supports C#, Java, Python. You can write automation tests in any of those programming languages. So Ruby as well.
What do you call that first one? C#.
C#.
Say it
C#.
again. C#.
Yep.
SHARP.
Yep, C#. It's from Microsoft. This is .NET technology. The Java, Python, obviously Ruby is supported. Now, Water stands for Web Application Testing in Ruby. It says Ruby, okay, in the name itself. It is specifically for Ruby test automation. Okay, so Water. Now, the way they have designed these libraries, so Selenium is a core. Selenium came out first, probably 10-15 years ago, and they started building out the test. But there was some complexity of using Selenium. So when it came out, it has a lot of things you have to do, and so developer or QAs were getting frustrated because you cannot write certain things easily. So what they did in last 5-7 years, they built another library on top of Selenium, and that is called Water, basically, specifically for Ruby programming. So they created another library. Underneath of Water is Selenium library. Okay, they created on top of Selenium. Okay, so that's, and this is the one very easy to use, and you will see it as we go through the camp. Actually, when we write the actual test, you will see it a lot easier to code in Water than Selenium. Okay, but essentially both do the same thing: interact with the browser and come up with automation. Okay, but it's specifically for Ruby programming one. Just remember.
Just for Ruby.
Yeah, Selenium works for any programming language that's listed here, plus many more. So if something is not there, but it might be supported by Selenium.
Almost everything, right?
All major programming language. Okay. By the way, I'm gonna share. I forgot to ask you guys. Do you guys need printout for the present? I'm gonna share with you the links. All the digital presentation, what we have. So links will be there for you to download. If you need printout, let me know. Okay, and I'll print it out for you.
Okay.
Okay, any question on this? All right, now let me highlight one more difference here. Okay. Let me ask you guys, I guess, question. So when would you use Selenium Water versus other tools? What's the difference between these tools here versus Water and Selenium? By the way, when do we use any tool? Let me ask you, when do we use these tools? Or what test would be good for automation? Let me think it that way, put it that way. Where would you apply these tools? What so you have SDLC, right? So what phase you will apply and write the automation test?
Regression, because that
Okay.
the testing is repeating, right?
Right. Okay. So regression. So in order to do regression, what do you need to have? So regression is done on the actual software, right?
Yeah.
So you need to have working software
Yes.
in order to write regression test, right? In order to do the regression test.
Yes.
So this tool, you need to have working software in order to create the automation test.
Means
Product.
to do the
This-
automation, you need to create it.
No, you need to have working software. Working
Yes.
software means any web, any
Yes.
application that you are trying to test.
Uh-huh.
You need to have, first of all, code, working code, so that you can create your automation test. Okay, all these tools, VSTP, Microsoft, SmartBed, Tosca, you need to have working software
Product for that.
product for that, right? Now, there's a big difference. Selenium and Water working with the Cucumber, the concept is a little bit different. And I'll show you what it is as we go through. But you do not need to have working software in order to write your Cucumber test and so forth. Okay, so you can write your Cucumber test very early, as early as when you are collecting the acceptance criteria or requirements. That's where you start writing your Cucumber test, and then you automate it as the software is being built. Okay, it's a different concept. That's the reason companies are, if anybody is using Agile methodology, they will focus on Selenium, Water. They want to integrate, start writing the automation test before your software is being done. Okay, but this one, you have to have working software in order to write your automation test. That's the big difference. Okay,
Harsal, I have a question.
yes, go ahead, Susi.
So, what kind of application software you are telling?
Any business application, right? So if you are working for a bank, you have the business application like a web apps, anything like that.
Right?
If you are building it from scratch,
Mm-hmm.
so you cannot create your automation test unless you have a working version of the code. Basically. Does it make sense, Rusi?
No.
Okay. Now you can do all test planning, you create your test scenarios, test cases, document them, but you cannot execute it, right? Until you have working software, meaning they give you whatever version for testing. Then only you can execute your test. Same thing, in order to record the test, these all are record and play type of tools, right? All this Microsoft, Microsoft Focus, SmartBed, Tosca, open source, they are all are record and play type of tools. So you need a working software in order to record your test and execute it later on.
So you mean to say like already system testing is done, then only we will do this, or?
Yes, that is correct, because you still have to do testing, right? System testing, how you are doing system testing, you can do manual, you have to do manual testing. That's why when people says there are no jobs for manual tester, you have to do all these things, and then you can build the automation test, which can become part of your regression testing.
Do you know, Harsal, when I started manual, because I don't have IT background, right?
Sure.
So the friends are saying, I am doing manual, that's my job. But after I learned manual, now I can say without manual, there is no testing there, right?
That is correct. That is correct. So it will never go away.
Yeah.
But you understand my point, right, Susi?
Yes, Harsal, yeah. Thank you.
All right, so remember that Agile world is moving towards different kind of automation testing, and that's where the Selenium and Water is leveraged. If you are working on waterfall type of projects, or if you want to build a regression test or automation test after the fact, after your software, you might want to use one of these tools. Okay, but if you want to make the automation testing process while you are developing the software, you probably will end up using Selenium or Water.
So automation is only for the regression and other testings are there, you can do it.
You can automate as much as you want, but you cannot automate 100% of your test cases. That's never feasible.
Oh, okay.
Because it takes a lot of time. Think about it, if they change some software, let's say you develop the software, you capture all the automation tests.
Mhm.
But if the software changes are there, you have to go and modify those scripts. So you will end up re-recording those scripts and all those things. It will cost you a lot of time. Okay, so you will never automate 100% of the things. You will automate the business processes type of scenarios, which are a little bit complex to execute. You will go in the record certain scenarios on. Okay,
So, but mainly regression.
yes, regression. Yeah, it is for use for regression. Yes, that is correct. Yep. Alright, so let's move on. Okay, so now we talked about the agile, right? So we talked about, okay, Selenium and Water is used baked into the agile process and so forth. And that's where one concept comes in the picture, which is called acceptance test driven development. Acceptance TDD, test driven development. Okay, so it's acceptance. You will see some different terminology. Behavior driven development. You will see specification by example. And so forth. Essentially, we are talking about the same thing. Yeah. So what is ATDD? Or what is acceptance test driven development? So before I go there, right? So what's the biggest problem based on I'm asking Gitali, Susri, two people. What's the issue that you have seen in the real life based on the work experience that you have? What is the main issue that you face when you are given the requirement, developers are given the requirement to code something? What is the main thing that you see? Issue is?
Issue while testing or?
No, issue when you are given the requirement, right?
Okay.
And developers are given requirement, developers are given the same requirement. And you try to build your stuff versus developers are trying to build their programming stuff.
Right.
What is the issue that you see at there when they give you the software? If you can think of it.
Are
So-
you talking about the 3 C's?
Not 3 C's. 3 C's are there, right? I mean, you will interpret it from your standpoint as a QA, complete, correct, and so forth, right?
Yeah.
But when you are given the requirement versus developers are given the requirement, you both gonna interpret it differently. Right? Because you have to write your own test cases while developer is developing the work. Okay, developer is writing the code. So there could be some communication gap. Because you are working in silos. Generally, this happens in the waterfall a lot, but I have seen in the agile process as well. Okay, even though you are working on agile, they look at the story and everybody goes and you create your own test cases versus developer is writing the code. The communication gap does happen. Okay, and when the software is delivered at the end of 2 weeks or 1 week, whatever, you're gonna find a lot more bugs.
Because nothing is clear.
Because both interpreted differently,
Differently.
right? So that's the biggest problem, communication problem is there. Okay, so ATDD process. ATDD process is helps you eliminate that problem. Now, how we will talk a little bit after a couple of slides. Okay, but this is the biggest problem. Communication is a big problem because everybody interprets differently. Okay. So ambiguity, right? Ambiguity or basically. So in the Scrum, I mean, I've seen it happening. Even though you are following Agile, that doesn't mean you're gonna deliver it successfully. You're still gonna have issues and so forth. And why it happens? Mainly because of the communication. Not everybody is on the same page. Whether QA or 2 developers working on same thing, they are not on the same page. Okay, so ATD process helps you eliminate this issue by improving the communication. Now, how it does it, we'll see basically. Okay. So this is kind of like an ATDD approach that's been laid out. In general, these are more like a guideline. Okay, you don't have to strictly follow. But what happens in the ATDD is because in the agile world, right? So sometimes you have business analysts working with the customer directly, and then they write their user stories and they say, "Oh, you go and read the story and see if you have a question." That's very common scenario. Okay, they don't all work together, collaborate. Okay. But here, what it proposes, that whole team sit down with the customer, basically, and then they collect the requirement that everybody's on the same page.
Harshal, I have a question.
Yes, yes, Roshni.
Regarding your last question, like what thing we faced. It's like, don't we have scrums and stand-ups, like mostly what I have seen? So in
So
that, we just try to, discuss with the developers and regarding the requirements and all.
no, the generally Scrum meetings are not used for daily Scrum meetings, right? So it's a 15 minutes meeting. You don't have a time to discuss any of these things. Everybody reports their progress and say what they are working on today and what we working by and today, what is the goal for
Daily
today?
target.
Daily targets, right? So problems you shouldn't be discussing basically in the daily Scrum meetings.
Not the problems, but it's like kindly what is the requirement on and what is there from the developer perspective and from the QA perspective, apart from whatever we are doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard and fast, right? I mean, you can always extend the time, or you can go stand up and go ask developers, see what is the issue. That's the more collaborative approach, right? But not everybody follows the same thing.
Okay,
the big-
because for us it's like Monday Scrum for at least 1 hour, and from Tuesday to Friday it's like a daily stand-up. So in the Scrum we discuss with the line of business people and all.
Okay,
But in the daily stand-up, we discuss mostly regarding, our project, not with the line of business.
understand.
Yeah.
So you have a planning meet basically on Mondays, and that's where
Yeah.
you have business folks come in on Mondays.
Right.
It is Scrum, they are not part of it.
Yes.
But and so yeah, I mean, everybody implements differently, whatever works best for the company, because line of business, at least product owner needs to be there on the daily Scrum meetings. Okay, generally that's the guideline from the Scrum standpoint. But now product owner is part of the business, they may not have time daily, so they may not even come. But you can dedicate time or have another meeting with them to flush out any issues or clarifications. So everybody implements differently, but the whole point is that the whole team is on the same page when they are, so that we can minimize the bugs, basically. That's the whole point, right? Minimize the bugs, developers are developing the right thing, and QAs or testers are also doing their part, basically. Creating the right test. So forth.
So we have all the links. Did you send it completely?
No, I'll send you. We have it, we have it. Okay, so I'll send you, don't worry. You will get everything. Okay, so ATDD approach, right? What the ATDD approach suggests is sit down with the customer, use some real world examples to build the understanding. Now, when we say real world example, I'll show you one example right after within the next couple of slides. But essentially create the acceptance criteria from these examples. So these are general guidelines, how you should be approaching. Now, you may not be doing that as a QA. This is a typically business analyst job to figure out the right acceptance criteria and so forth, but you are sitting on the table as well. So if you have a question, you can always ask the business for clarification or ask business analyst. Okay, but this is a general guideline for how do we come up with acceptance criteria. Okay, so use acceptance criteria as requirement for specification. Create automated acceptance test cases based on the acceptance criteria. Okay, and test deliver software using automated acceptance test cases. So when this acceptance criteria is becomes your requirement, and then you write your automated acceptance test case right up front. Okay, so you don't wait till the software is being delivered or everybody starts working. You write it, get the approval from the business at the same time. Okay, and then finally you start automating the acceptance test. It's a little bit different approach than waterfall. So important part is acceptance criteria, document as part of the user stories or however you are documenting it. You also document automated acceptance test cases, basically in certain format. And finally, you start automating the acceptance test case. And so after 1 week, when you have a software, working software, you will also have your test ready at that point. Automated test. Any question on, let me pause here on this slide. Any question, clarification from anyone? I'll let you digest for a minute.
I understand all the points, only except that middle one,
Which one?
the middle one, the third one.
Use acceptance criteria
Yeah.
as a requirement, because this becomes part of your requirement. You need to have a software requirements, right? So essentially, when you are sitting with the customer, we're talking about a certain feature, right? Or let's say login page, just a simple example would be login. So they will say, oh, I will have administrator can log in, I will have maybe dealer can log in and so forth. So somebody, all these people can log in and they need to be on their own homepage, right? So that you can have acceptance criteria created for that, which are nothing but the requirement.
Oh,
But you document it certain way. Acceptance criteria are documented in certain way, which
Yes, sir.
also is the format, right after this slide. Okay. But you as a QA, basically you take a lead on writing the acceptance test at the same time.
so
Whether it's,
acceptance criteria, the BA is going to take care of
yes,
it.
that is the BS, but you are sitting, remember, this is ATD.
Yes.
So you are sitting on the same
Yes.
table, so you understand what is the requirement, right? But then you immediately start working on acceptance tests. You need to get some approval from the business. Okay, which are specifically, okay, this is what you mean. And sometimes this is done by the team, not just QA, but you own this piece, acceptance test. Okay, but you still need to engage business. Hey, is that what you mean when we say this acceptance criteria? Is it what we mean? And finally, you as a tester, you will, while everybody is developed, so everybody agrees on this one, right? On day 1 and day 2, Tuesday, you may have acceptance test, you get the approval. Then developers they will start writing their programming. You will start working on your, basically automating the test. Start writing automation test. Okay, so that's the general concept. Okay, it's a concept. Everybody implements differently. Again, goes by the company.
Yeah,
Okay, so they may have their own process. You have to follow the process.
but this is the general.
This
way
is general
of-
guideline. Okay, for ATD. Okay. All right, so we talk about the examples, right? Use real world examples to build. So you collect those examples as a team. And that can feed into your acceptance test, that can feed into acceptance criteria. Okay, so I'll show you what this will look like, but this is how it should work. It's just that you're gonna document acceptance criteria differently. Because this is BA is doing it and they need to get some approval. You are writing from acceptance test standpoint and you will document it differently.
Yeah.
So this is where the Gherkin comes in the picture. You will document in the Gherkin format, acceptance test. This is acceptance criteria. It is documented a little bit differently by business analyst. Okay, so let's see what that format looks like, right? So again, we all understand acceptance criteria is a product requirement or feature requirement, right? It should be defined before development has started because it's a requirement. There is no brainer, right? Now, when you document it, the important part is here. More likely to capture customer intent. Okay, so this is should be defined before the development started. When they define earlier, more likely to capture customer intent rather than development reality. So what does it mean? customer intent rather than development reality. So it doesn't talk about if I click on this button or you should click on this button to get to this functionality and so forth. Talks about business process standpoint, documenting from that standpoint, and so forth. Little bit abstract. Okay,
So it's more about towards the customer. They don't think about the.
that is
developer
correct. Yeah,
process.
because there is no design yet. There is nothing there, right? Design and everything comes later on. So you should be focused on what customer want. Is the point of view. Okay. So essentially, what needs to be done, not how it needs to be done. Right, so that's, I think you're gonna see the good BAs, bad BAs, all kind of BAs in the field. Some BAs will document, okay, how they will take ownership of the design as well, sometimes,
Oh,
Wow.
okay? But that's not how it's supposed to be, because once the developer takes those things, screen mockup, they'll say, oh, this is a junk. We're gonna completely redesign our own thing. All right, so there is a nice format that's given here. So highlighted in yellow is the format, typical format for the acceptance criteria. So as an actor, I want to do certain action so that I can achieve this particular outcome. Okay?
Last one is the result after that.
Yeah, outcome. So this is actor or verb describing behavior. And finally, is what is the outcome or observable result. So I have a couple of examples here. As an administrator, I want to be able to create a user account so that I can grant user access to the system. It makes it a little bit more clear to me who is doing the work, right? Because essentially, as a QA, you are focused on those three actions as well, right? Who is doing the work, how they are doing it, and what is the ultimate outcome you're measuring, right? But this is the BA capturing, okay, for you. As a customer, I want to sign up for newsletters so that I can receive the latest updates and so forth, right? Now, what is the benefit we are talking here? So team understanding on how the feature will work from the customer viewpoint and removes ambiguity from the requirement. Okay, removing ambiguity. What is our goal? What's the goal of the Atdd? Remove the ambiguity. Right? And if you are sitting on the table, and if you have a question, if it's still not clear, you can raise it right there. Okay, and you can clarify it right there with the customer or with the BA. I think most of the project fails because of the clarity, not being clear about what customer wants. Okay, that's how most of the project fails, if it fails. Okay, that's the biggest issue that I have seen in the IT. Requirements are not being captured correctly. That's the biggest cause. Okay, so everybody struggles. Whole team struggles. Okay, what is that really want? And everybody interprets differently, and it causes
If
a lot
they
of
will not
issues.
figure it out, then it's gone. That project.
I mean, the
Most-
project is gone. People are gone too. I mean, sometimes, yeah. So because if it's $1 million project, your money is down the drain if you can deliver it on time and those things.
so once my question, like, once requirements are set by BA, like BA role is very important since
Yeah.
they're building the requirements. So that has to be even, accepted by the business, right?
Yeah, the
So
user
how-
stories, user stories, right? When we talk about the agile.
Uh-huh.
So in the waterfall world, you will have the sign off, formal sign off. So you might do 3 or 4 walkthroughs with the
Yes.
business, right? So you sit down with the business who are the stakeholders.
Yes.
So you will sit down with them and you walk them through, this is
These
what
are
you
what
need,
we-
right? But it's from the business standpoint. When it comes to the development,
Uh-huh.
and they say, oh, this is garbage. Because business, sometimes business don't understand what they are telling you. So BA is supposed to review with the internal team
Yeah.
before they get the
individual
final approval.
So the point is like if the expectation from business
Yeah.
is not entirely 100% that will be taken care of. That's the point.
No, the point
because-
is that whatever the business analyst wrote,
Yeah.
yes, they understood.
Mhm.
But it wasn't documented clearly for the IT team to implement the software.
Oh, got it.
So there is a big gap, right? Business say, oh, yes, I think this is I want, and the business analyst captures that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the IT team, they say, oh, there are so many gaps I see.
Okay.
And so they have to go back and forth,
Back
and
and
that's
forth
where
to-
so many times,
Yeah.
and that's a reality, okay, that happens.
Yeah.
It's, you probably have seen it, or Susie has seen it.
Most of the time it's like changes, lot of.
Changes,
updates.
lot of changes,
Lot of
updates,
you see lot of
because
changes.
a lot of gaps,
Lot of gaps, lot of changes.
lot of gaps. The whole point is, but the whole IT team is sitting there, the key people.
Mhm.
It could be the test lead, but generally the whole team. Because when we talk about agile team, right, it's about 8 to 9 people max on one, what is called, one team. Otherwise, they break it down. If it's like more than 10 people, then you will have another team that working parallel on different features. Okay, so you have this parallel development going on.
Mhm.
So everybody needs to be in the same meeting while business analyst is collecting the requirement. That's the whole goal, but that doesn't happen. Yeah, it doesn't happen, so. And that's where a lot of communication gap comes in. Okay. All right, any other question on this one? All right. Okay, so once you have the clearly defined acceptance criteria, there is a concept called 3 Amigos. Okay, there is a 3 Amigos. So everybody, so this happened discussion of acceptance criteria among the team members. Okay, illustrated with the formal example discovered. So this is now IT looking at the acceptance criteria, IT team. Okay. And everybody has the same understanding. So this one typically happens on Monday morning meetings, when you do have the sprint planning. Right, this is what you go through. Okay, these are the acceptance criteria that we had earlier. Now let's discuss them so that we can start pulling in the stories or basically working through the design and so forth. But everybody works through it, not just QA, BA or developers, everybody, whole team sitting together, discussing that's one acceptance criteria, one by one, and coming up with basically whole goal is get everybody on the same page. What needs to be
All
made.
the team members.
All the team members, IT team members.
Yeah.
Okay, it may product owner may or may not be there, but generally it's IT team members. It's called 3 Amigos, QA, BA, and developers. 3 Amigos. That's where the term came from. Okay, and they discuss borderline test cases, right? So you as a QA will bring up, the developers will talk about technical feasibility or what needs to be done. And then you have BAs or QAs are talking about happy path, negative scenarios, and all those things. Okay. But essentially, the goal is everybody needs to be on the same page regarding what needs to be, what's built basically in the software. Okay. So what they do in 3 Amigos, right? So let's say business give this criteria, right? Generally. So as a potential customer, I want to collect books in the shopping cart so that I can order several books at once. This is given by this. Right. So you think from your QA standpoint. Let's assume this story is implemented, how I'm going to test it. Basically. Okay, you have to start thinking in that direction from the QA standpoint. And this is, you come up with a different scenarios. Right there. It may not be just you, because as I said, it's a 3 Amigos meeting. So maybe this side, okay, you come up with, I want to add a new book. I want to, if I already have a new book, then I should add, my shopping cart should go up by 1, basically. I would check whether shopping cart is empty, but then when I add a new book, then I should have at least 1 book and so forth. Okay, so you think of all the scenarios that you can think of and document basically as part of it using the acceptance test criteria later on. Okay, but it came with this particular one acceptance criteria, you will have 4 potential things here, right? That customer can do. Right, so you can think of it as a acceptance criteria belong, which is these 4 things you can do as part of one acceptance criteria.
Means all the possibilities.
All the possibilities. What are possibilities that you can think of? from the testing standpoint that you can think of, right? Now, when does it happen? It happens upfront, not at the end. Okay, this happens. You collected acceptance criteria. Now you are good going through 3 Amigos meetings. And if you present your criteria, maybe you might come up with 2. Some other team members will come up with the other 2. Okay, so it's a collaborative effort. These are scenarios that you can get. So now, once you have this understanding, you have to document it, right? From your quality assurance standpoint. And that's where the acceptance test comes in the picture. Okay. So acceptance test, again, definition does not change. Basically, some expected result from the system, right? This is what we are expecting from the system. Important part is customers are responsible for verifying the correctness of the acceptance test. Remember what I said earlier, you have to get approval for the acceptance test in ideal world. Now, some companies, customer is not that much engaged, so you may not have to take approval. But as long as you document it as part of the stories and so forth, this acceptance test you should be good. Okay, and also the good thing about is acceptance tests are also used as a regression test prior to a production release when automated. Okay, because some companies will stop at acceptance tests. So they will say, oh, I just want to write acceptance tests and we are done. Maybe in a future date, we'll automate it. Some companies who implements the Atdd fully, they will go and say, no, by end of the sprint, we want to have acceptance, complete automated test delivered as well. Okay, so it depends on, so like companies like BMW, they stop at acceptance test. So they will create the acceptance test and that's it. There is no automation done afterwards. But some companies like a mental health or something else, they want to have the actual automation done at the end of the sprint, at the end of 2 weeks. So again, it depends on what company implements, like NetJets. NetJets is a big company, right? They have fully automated process, Atdd process built in to their development lifecycle. So you implement actually create the automation task at there. All right. So acceptance tests, again, user story is not complete until it has passed the acceptance test. So if you implement fully, that means, and you have working software after 2 weeks, your acceptance test should also pass at the same time.
Then the user story will be complete.
Yes, so definition of done, right? When we talk about definition of done, that includes passing the acceptance test after 2 weeks. Okay. Now, acceptance tests includes both acceptance criteria plus examples, data plus scenarios, and we'll work through our examples so that you understand. But it is generally written in the Gherkin type of format, given when then. Okay, given when then. Given is typically the precondition, when is actor plus action, who is doing the work and what action they are doing. These are nothing but the stats, basically, from the business standpoint, not from the house standpoint, from the business standpoint, which will show you what it looks like. And then finally, what is the expected outcome at that. So your test case doesn't change, right? I mean, test case, if you compare with the test case format, you have precondition, you have steps, and you have post condition or whatever the observable outcome, right? Expected result. Essentially, concept is not different. Right? Here, concept is not different. You still have precondition. What has to be true in the system? Then what actions I need to perform so that I can achieve the expected outcome or observable result. Any question on this? Let me pause here for a second. Okay. All right, so these are some examples. Okay, so given I am an admin user, when I create an account, then the user should receive the confirmation. Okay, that's one example. This is another one. Given I am on Google search, when I search for Ruby Cucumber trading column, then I should see Intellect software in the search result. Now, if this highlighted part is very important. It's about the business domain, not about software design. Now, what does it mean? What it means that, because remember, this is done on day 2, day 1 and day 2. You are collecting acceptance criteria, you are writing your acceptance
There is
test.
no design at that time.
There is no design at the time. You have no idea about how it will be implemented, basically by the developers. So you are writing from the customer standpoint. Hey, when I go to the search page, I know there will be something. And then when I do search for something, then I should see in the result. How I do, what I'm going to click on it, it's not about that. It's about the customer standpoint. Very abstract. There is no such design items here. Okay, so you're writing from the customer, wearing the hat of the customer.
Customer content.
So think it as a like a user acceptance testing. This is very similar to that. They don't care about I'm going to click on this button versus that. They will have very high level steps that says I'm going to perform this activity and I should see ultimately this thing in the search result. But you as a QA, you are writing acceptance test in a certain format. Now UAT tests are written in your test case type of format. But this is written in the Gherkin format. Or given when then format. Again, the same principle applies like SMART criteria. It has to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, and all those things.
So given when, then that's a Gherkin,
Yes, we'll talk a little bit more detail. There are a lot of things, but yes, this is the general format that the Gherkin format follows. This is following the Gherkin format. Okay. An acceptance test is written in Gherkin format.
Okay.
Yeah. Any question? Other question?
That's smart, maybe you told us what you are maybe.
Yeah, these are, so you apply those principles, right?
Oh.
On the test case.
Uh-huh.
Has to be independent, has to be specific, has to be measurable, achievable, relevant and time bound. So same criteria you can apply on this Gherkin test or acceptance test. It follows the same principle. So it focuses on the single thing, right? Again, you don't want to mix and match 2 different outcomes because every test has to have one outcome. You are verifying certain things at the end. Now you can verify 2 things at the end, just like in the test case, right? You can have this has to be true and other things has to be true, then you can pass the test. Same thing, if I see Intellect software and I see something else, then my test passes when you are executing
Yeah,
it.
then you use the and.
Yeah, then you will use basically.
Combine them.
We'll talk about that, what this format looks like and so forth. Okay. Oh, so there is a small exercise here, for you guys. So, okay. So we talked about this acceptance criteria, right? And hopefully I'm not sharing, online folks cannot see my things. They can see only one. Okay, so I have this small exercise. I like you guys to spend maybe 10 minutes on it. And you guys will work through individually because we don't have groups of 2 or 3. Let's see if you can write it in the Gherkin format. You need to think it through a little bit further. How can you test this 4 different acceptance criteria? 4 different scenarios. These are scenarios, right? This is acceptance criteria. These are 4 different scenarios. Convert to the Gherkin format given when then format. Give your effort, see what your understanding is, and we'll talk about it. Yeah. You good? Just write on piece of paper, it says good. So these 4 scenarios, you need to write it in actual Gherkin test format. Okay. So think it through. These are scenarios. Okay. So you need to little bit think it through how you can write it. Any question online? You guys know what to do? Yes, no?
No,
Sushi?
no, Harshal, sorry.
Okay, so yep, you should say that. So what I'm expecting here is, so you have 4 different scenarios here for the acceptance criteria. So you need to write 4 acceptance tests using each scenario. So books can be added to the shopping cart. That's one scenario. So how would you write in a Gherkin format? This particular scenario.
Means what is given, what you're going to do, then what's the
Given
result?
when then format.
Yeah.
So what is the precondition, post condition, and what should be the outcome?
The work, okay.
Give it maybe for 10 minutes, think it through. And we'll review it here. Okay.
So
So
is it like any acceptance test or criteria will be written in the Gherkin format?
yeah. So these books can be added to the shopping cart. So this is one scenario. This is one acceptance test you have to create. So books can be added to the shopping basket. Right. So given what has to be true, so you are testing this scenario. Right. So what has to be true? What is given? What should be your when and then? Those 3 steps.
Can I see the Gherkin format once more, please?
Yes. This is a given when then. Yep.
So maybe we have the printouts to be good then, so that we can see and then.
Yeah, you can load it up on your computer as well. But I want to give, because I have answers too. So that's the reason
Oh, okay.
I want to give you. I have answer in next slide. So
Okay, so. No, let us do it.
yeah. It's fine. I mean, whatever you get, right? This is the first time you guys are writing it. So let's see what your understanding is. There's nothing wrong or right. Okay.
we can have just one test scenario for this. We can have multiple.
One for each. One
Oh.
for each. Yeah, so one for each, yep. Remember, this is acceptance criteria, this is your requirement. You came up 4 different scenarios to test, basically, as a team. Now, but you just need to document it in the Gherkin format. That's what you are doing here. So, but books can be added to the shopping basket. Okay,
No,
so
it's
how would
not
you?
online. Oh,
Oh,
What is it?
I also,
I did online.
So for,
Like how you do in the.
so for me, like, it's like, can I say?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah, go
So
ahead.
it's like, given I have empty shopping basket,
Okay,
that is a
Yeah.
precondition,
Yes.
so. When I edit one book to shopping
Yep.
basket,
okay.
then I can remove same book from the shopping basket.
Oh, so you combine.
So, because that would be the process, I'm just.
Yeah, so which scenario did you did first, you did the second one, right?
Second, yeah.
Or you combine,
So, first, I use shopping basket is initially empty, that is the first, that is a precondition.
okay,
So, because when you log into,
Right.
your,
I see. Okay, I understand,
that
yeah, but you need to write one
for each.
for each,
Got it.
not combining, right? Because these are 4 distinct scenarios that you came up for. But you guys are on the right track, okay? You guys are on the right track, you just need to write it for each of these different. Okay.
challenge one is the third one. It's completely different.
Yeah, it's shopping basket is empty.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine.
Because obviously it will be empty when you are going entering the shop and doing it.
That's all you need then, right?
Yeah.
You just need to verify that shopping basket is empty,
Yes.
right? Okay, another 3-4 couple of minutes. Okay.
Third scenario is definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you
It's
say, when you
very
think it's,
easy, but you know how to.
Same thing, it's like.
Yeah. Obviously, it will be empty, otherwise how to start the shopping, but
Addition, then and when and then.
Yeah.
all.
yeah,
all right,
I like it though.
okay, look, so is everybody almost there? Almost good?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna ask online folks to see if they want to start with the first one. So we'll take turns.
That's
Okay.
okay.
So anybody from online wants to just tell me what they have for books can be added to the shopping cart.
Yeah, I did something like that. Given basket is empty, when I added the books, then books are added to my shopping cart or shopping basket.
Okay, when I added, what's the exact thing that you have?
When I added the books
Books, okay,
to the shopping cart or basket, yeah. Basket.
what is your What is your then statement?
Books are added to my shopping cart. Or books are there in my cart.
To my shopping. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So generally, the rule of thumb here is it needs to be visible. Okay? So your criteria is good, but remember it includes two things, right? We talk about data part as well. So your scenario needs to be very specific. So when you are testing, when I added books to the shopping cart, right? You can modify it to say when I
Two books or 5 books like that.
for a specific book.
Yeah.
Basically,
Or we can mention the book's name.
yes, book's name. Yep, you can specify what book you are adding.
I did XYG ABC like that.
Okay,
too.
so when I add
Magic Tree or Spider-Man.
for Spider-Man book, right?
Yeah.
Shopping basket or shopping cart, doesn't matter what terminology you are using.
Mhm.
And what is the outcome here? How the
Okay. The
Yes.
Spider-Man is in my cart.
Spider-Man books.
one Spider-Man,
Yeah, one Spider-Man book. Or
My-
I can write two Spider-Man. If I add two Spider-Man, the two Spider-Man book is in my cart.
okay, so if you have two Spider-Man, how would it change?
That will be the last one, I think, last criteria.
Your criteria is your shopping cart is empty.
Uh-huh.
You are adding one book, basically, right? So you should see only one Spider-Man there.
If
Now-
I add two or more, then in
Also-
when criteria.
Then given basket is like when one book is there. Given
One-
in big,
Even my basket has
yeah,
one Spider-Man book.
one spider, yeah.
Possibilities there, yeah. one
When I
Spider-Man.
add one more Spider-Man book to the shopping cart,
It
then I
is
should
two.
see.
Yeah, two. So,
Spider-Man.
yeah.
Yes, go.
So I have a question. Suppose my basket is empty, but I'm going to add two books. Suppose one is a Spider-Man book and another is Magic Tree book. So is it possible in when criteria?
Yes, so one Spider-Man shopping cart and
And
I add one, so let me
Ma-
specify what is that magic
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 Tree.
Tree book. Yeah,
to the shopping cart, right?
yeah. Now my in then criteria I can write then my basket has two books, Spider-Man and Magic Tree.
Then I shall see two books in my shopping cart.
I
Yes.
don't think
Yeah.
the mid one, should we do and another sentence? What I did one XYG book and
Okay,
one ABC book.
I think you guys are on the right. Okay,
That
let
will
me
be
just tell
possible,
you
or we
first.
have to write a separate sentence.
See, again, there is no right and wrong answer, right?
Yeah.
In this, when you are, because everybody thinks differently,
Got it.
so you will think differently, but as long as all these four scenarios, you should be good. And let me show you what we have, right? So you should, I talked about all very similar. So first one, books can be added to the shopping cart. What we have, even my shopping cart is empty. When I add one book, Harry Potter, then I shall see one Harry Potter,
Yeah.
right? This is what you guys have it, right? Now here, same book can be added multiple times. So given I have one Harry Potter, I add one more, I shall say two.
Two copies.
Yeah.
Two
Yes.
copies.
Mhm.
Given my shopping cart contain one Harry, yeah, I think this is what I see, right?
That is the added multiple one.
Multiple, same book, right,
Yes.
here. And I should say some warning. Basically, already exists, basically something like that. Okay,
Validation.
again, this acceptance criteria, you need to validate, acceptance test is approved by business, that's the whole reason. Right, because is it expected behavior? We don't know. We might think, yes, I should see warning, but business says,
They
no,
need it or not.
I
we
think,
don't know.
yeah, it's
Let them
perfectly fine. Yeah.
As many copies. there
That's
are.
right, that's right. So again, this is a process, right? This is a process that you need to go through, come up with the acceptance test based on acceptance criteria. And then you can move on to the automation side of things later on. Okay, but this is all about basically coming up with the acceptance test. Okay. Is everybody clear how to write acceptance test? Now, we haven't talked about different things yet. Gherkin is a little bit in depth. Okay, so we'll talk about next.
I had a doubt about that.
Yes,
So
okay.
should I write a book name or not? That's why I wrote ABCXYZ to clarify that, but yes, we need clarify that. which
Because
book
you
are
always
writing.
need your test data,
Yes,
right? It
yes.
has to be very specific
Uh-huh.
and measurable. That's what the smart criteria comes in the picture.
Oh, yeah,
Specific and measurable,
yes.
okay?
The shopping cart is empty.
Yes, Giti, do you have any question?
No, actually, what is that, one, given my shopping basket is empty. So that, yeah, that one, I didn't add any books in my shopping cart, that what?
So given I am logged on, you can just say that, right? I mean, basically, you don't need to take any action, you just verify. Where given I am logged in, first time, for the first time, then my shopping, you don't have to have a given, basically.
So if I write that I have a shopping cart, but when I didn't add any books, then I check it is empty.
Perfect, yeah,
Yeah,
that works as
that's what
well,
I'm saying.
right? So that works as well. So again, how you verify it, it's your thought process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think you guys got the idea. I think.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any question on what we discussed so far?
But we can write that without when. I did with the when, like basket was there, I logged in, and when I added the books, the
It's
basket was
perfectly fine.
empty.
It's perfectly fine.
How will do it without when? Without any action.
Yeah, that's fine. You just log in. Given I'm logged in and for login for the first time.
Mhm.
You can say when I look at or open my card, then it is empty,
Oh, okay.
right? So you can put it that way as well.
When will be there, but it will not be very
Yeah.
specific to.
Specific to anything, yeah. Okay. Or any question on anything that we discussed, like we talked about ATDD process, we talked about acceptance criteria, we talked about acceptance test, and I started talking about Gherkin format. Okay, so those four things we talked about. Okay, do you guys need break or you guys are good?
Good.
Good, right?
Good.
I mean, if you guys need break, let me know, otherwise we'll keep on going.
Yes.
All right.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's move on. If you don't have any question, then we'll move on to the next topic. Right? Okay, so we talked about ATDD and all those things. Let's talk about the concept here.
Mhm.
The whole concept here is, are we supposed to test before we build or before we have working software? That's the whole concept here. Remember, we start writing acceptance tests before even we have actually design or even have a software. That's the whole idea behind it. And it's not a new idea. It's been there, like developers are following TDD approach, test driven development, for a long time. It's been around since 90s, basically. Developers are following that approach. BDD, which is a behavior driven development, is built basically for QAs or testers. And both fits into ATDD approach, basically. ATDD is nothing but acceptance test driven development. Okay. So if you ever worked as a developer, you might be familiar with this approach, ATD. So what the developers do, it's a software development process, right? So followed by developer. But before they write any code, they actually write unit test, basically first in the code, developers. Then they will start writing the code. The unit test will fail, first time because there is no code, so it's supposed to fail. But as they implement the logic, and at the end, basically the idea is unit test supposed to pass.
Mhm.
Basically, and they will write very specific way, the unit test as well. So if there is any calculation being performed, 2 + 2 = 4, they will write a unit test first. Then they will implement a logic to calculate those two numbers, addition. And the test supposed to pass at that end. Okay, so if test doesn't pass, they will have to go and modify the code because test has to pass, basically.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the idea. And the same concept you are following here, TDD, you are writing the test, your test will fail as you are doing the automation. But when the software is built properly, your test supposed to pass at the end. Okay, so that's the idea. Now developers use different tools, C unit, J unit, BB unit, N unit, they have their own tools. But we are talking about BDD, okay? So BDD extends TDD by writing the acceptance test in a natural language that known programmers can read. Because we want to get approval from business. So you're writing in plain English like Gherkin, which is given when then type of criteria. So, and then business approves it, and so forth. But BDD focuses on the behavioral aspect of the system. So again, I emphasize here, we are not talking about system design or clicking on buttons or anything. We are talking about behavioral aspect or from the customer's viewpoint. Okay, so that's the way you are writing your acceptance test.
No design is involved here.
Did we write any
Yeah.
design? We are adding following what customer is supposed to do,
Mhm.
and that's how we are writing our acceptance test. And obviously there are various frameworks for BDD. Cucumber is the most popular one that we have, but there is a RSpec and SpecFlow. SpecFlow is what's very similar to Cucumber. RSpec is a different one. I have not used BHEAD, but they are available. But in this camp, we will focus on Cucumber framework. Okay. All right, so let me give you some concept about what is a framework. We all talked about what is a framework, so I'm just going to give you some general idea about the framework. So framework is generally, when we talk about Cucumber framework, right? So what it has, it has some built-in capabilities within the Cucumber software. Okay, so framework is generally considered to be a set of protocols, rules, standards, and guidelines, basically. And it follows certain scaffolding approach. So when you talk about writing automation tests using Cucumber, you have to write it in certain way, basically. So first of all, you have to write it in Gherkin, that is the base. Then only the tool will interpret your test and start executing automation test.
Mhm.
Okay, so it provides a scaffolding. So you have to build it certain way. The second part, it has some built-in capabilities for reporting, for email notification, and all kind of things. So that's what the framework comes with. Okay, so it has certain built-in capabilities. Okay, and I'll show you in the next slide. So when we talk about any framework, it has generally this type of capabilities are built in. You have programming language support, you have logging information, email notification. You don't have to build anything from scratch.
Mhm.
Framework comes with this type of things built in. Like you can run the reports very easily. You have some common programming libraries and configuration files, test data, all these things, and we'll dive into all those things when it comes to that. Okay. Now, test automation framework, there are various frameworks you're gonna run into.
Mhm.
BDD framework, we will talk about that in this camp. It's a BDD framework. Okay. Now, if you use Catalan, then you probably know the data-driven framework and keyword-driven framework. Okay, these are part of the record and play type of tools. Hybrid is a combination of keyword, data driven and BDD. You can call it hybrid. It's a mix and match type of
Means
framework.
these two and the last BDD.
Well, BDD is for Ruby Cucumber.
No, the
Because-
hybrid one.
Hybrid can be any combination. Any combination.
Oh, okay.
Generally, most of the tools are, because in if you are using if you use UFT or Catalan, you use both combination of data driven, meaning reading the data from the file, Excel file, and loading, supplying to your test. That's what the data driven is. Keyword driven is basically you have certain keywords, you instead of writing the actual program, you use those keywords to execute your automation test. Kind of like a catalog is built on top of that. But combination of both can be called hybrid. Okay, so like BDD can be part of the hybrid along with the data driven and keyword as well. Okay. Now library and module are nothing but you can build your own programming libraries, custom code, and then you can execute the test on top of it. Again, it's a whole different topic, so I'm not gonna dive into that, but you can Google it, see if you want to learn a little bit more on that. Essentially, but the whole idea here is you have to follow certain way to write your automation test. And we will follow BDD approach for creating the test. But again, when you use Cucumber, you have to create the test in certain way. Okay, so we will see it as we go through the camp, you will understand what the structure should look like and so forth. Any question on the framework? Or what's the definition of framework is? So it comes with the built-in capabilities for reporting, email notification, all type of things. Plus configuration file, it has all these things. It may not make sense now, but when we dive into actual building automation test, maybe we'll come back to this topic. Okay. All right, so we'll talk about a little bit more in depth in the Cucumber. Well, not in depth. I'm just gonna get you what it is, and then we'll see. Okay. Okay, so I think we already talked certain things. But it's a software, or it's a command line software or command line tool, mainly used for BDD type of automation, test automation. Okay, and it reads those Gherkin files and start executing the automation test. Now, as I said, you have to write it in certain way. So you have to write your automation test in a file called feature file. You have to write your automation test like given when then into scenarios and work through that. And hold on to this. We have plenty of a couple of more slides on to actually what the content should look like for the feature file and so forth. But essentially, you're writing your scenarios or automation test in Gherkin. Okay. For the Cucumber test. Oh, okay. The next slide I have it. So this is what your feature file will look like. So we talked about those 4 different scenarios for one acceptance criteria. Generally, you organize, you create one feature file, and you write all 4 scenarios, given when then that you created into one single file, following that approach. But you have 4 different scenarios.
But
Okay.
it will stay at, the 4 scenarios will stay there, number 2, right?
Number 2, I'm not sure.
Scenario.
Means,
So each file will have one feature keyword.
Okay.
It's at the top. Feature, it always starts with the feature.
Okay.
The description is optional. Okay. But the scenario, so what we wrote is a given when then, that's a one scenario.
Okay.
So initial basket is empty. That is a one scenario. Then you have a one adding a remove book. That is second scenario. So you will have this set repeating in the file. So scenario, and then you will have given when then, and so forth. So then you have another scenario, then you have another
Different
step,
scenario, right?
different scenario.
Oh, okay.
So those 4 will stay there, but
Yes, it will repeat, so this
Okay.
set will repeat. The feature file, feature keyword is only once at the top. Then you have scenario,
That is also
and
one.
then this one can repeat, scenario and then given when then, will repeat.
That will be.
And we'll go through a little bit in depth, okay, so that you will understand. Then you will have some Ruby facing code, because ultimate goal is you have to want to automate. This is plain English, but then this is the Ruby programming starts from the step definition. Okay, and we'll see as the camp progresses what those things are. Right now, it may not look familiar to you, whatever the code is,
Yeah.
but yeah. Okay, so understanding wise, what the Cucumber project will look like, or Cucumber test automation project will look like.
Mhm.
So you will have your project. So whatever system you are working on,
Mhm.
you will create one project. And then you will write all your, you will have a bunch of feature files
Feature
within
files.
that. Each feature file will have acceptance test for a single acceptance criteria. So you have, we gave one acceptance criteria, right? We saw one acceptance criteria,
Mhm.
but we have 4 acceptance tests that goes along with that acceptance criteria. So you will just organize that way. When we create it, I think it will make more sense. But essentially, what we are saying here, you will have 2 things, technology side of things and the business facing side. So whatever feature file you write,
Mhm.
that is a business facing, because you need to take approval from the business and you're done. Then the automation side, which is all Ruby programming. Okay, starting with the step definition, any supporting code, automation libraries, and water code and all those things. Is it Ruby programming side of things? That's the technology facing.
Yeah.
Okay, and that includes Ruby close, classes, pro objects, page objects, configuration files, all different kind of things. Web drivers, water, Selenium, everything comes into that. Okay, so let me see here. What is the overall process looks like for the automation, and what are the different components? This slide is very important, so you stop me if you don't understand anything, because this is what we do for building the automation.
Harshal, I have one question.
Yes,
So regarding the previous slide, for the first phase, business should sign off for that first. Then only we should go ahead with the second one for the technology one.
yes, that is correct. Now, again, each company implements differently. So you may not have business sign off, but as long as your team member agrees, then you are good. But ideally, you should take a sign off from the business for acceptance test. At least review it. Okay,
Okay.
even if you don't have formal sign off, maybe review with them to see if it makes sense to them.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so we start with the user story, right? That has a bunch of acceptance criteria in there. Now acceptance criteria are nothing but the requirement, right? From there, you will have multiple feature files, basically, or multiple acceptance tests. So one feature file can include scenario 1, scenario 2, right? I can have multiple scenarios. Same thing, second acceptance criteria will have different feature file. So scenario 3, scenario N, whatever. But this is how we can organize in the Cucumber world, different feature files. Any question on this? You always start with the story and criteria. From there, we have been writing the acceptance test. This is day 1 and day 2 activity, right?
First one is one feature, second one is another feature.
Yeah, another feature is called feature file,
Feature file.
but these are acceptance criteria. Remember, you can have, I don't know, maybe if you have 5 stories in the sprint,
Mhm.
you might have 10 acceptance criteria. 2 acceptance criteria per story. You will have one feature file for every acceptance criteria. So you will have 10 feature files for 5 stories.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Again, how you organize it is up to you as a QA, but that's a general idea behind it. So you get the approval from the business or review with the team and business and you're good. Now on day 3, you have to start automating. Okay, and that's what the Ruby programming starts here. So the next thing, you have to create the step definition file that goes along with each step or each scenario and step. Okay, so this is again Ruby code, because what these things are given when then, right? For in every scenario, these are nothing but the steps. Given is a precondition, when is action, and then is outcome. These all are steps, right? These are all are your steps for your testing. So you need to execute. So imagine you are executing, automating this every step. So there is a Ruby code that matches with each step. Okay, so the given will have a matching Ruby code. Because ultimate goal is you want to simulate basically the behavior in the browser. What's your goal? Goal is to simulate the same behavior in the browser based on what you know. So given I'm logged in as a user. So when you say given, you will execute the code that will open up a browser and you will physically log in into the site with whatever username and password that you specify. Okay, so when I enter credential, that's where you will have a matching Ruby code to go to the browser and you will enter those credentials basically and click
So
on
the
login.
Ruby code should match to each of the.
Given when the.
Yeah, given when then, these are your steps, so you need to put the brain behind it. Because right now it's a plain English, there is no brain. You are building the brain in the step definition and the supporting programming code. Okay, so that's how the automation works with the Ruby Cucumber and Selenium or Water. Okay, so this is a glue. Step definition is a glue between the steps or feature file and the actual Ruby code that you have to write. That's one. Think of it that way. Now, in order to how does the software knows what to execute, right? So whatever step you have, how does the software know what is being executed here? So that's where you have a regular expression comes in the picture. Okay, we will talk regular expression, what it is and how you can leverage.
Regular expression.
Yep, regular expression. It's a very old concept in the programming languages. Basically, because you write something, but software needs to know what Ruby code needs to be executed, and that's where the internally Cucumber uses regular expression. Okay, so what it is if you write given I'm logged in as some XYZ user. So here this brackets will include some matching Ruby code and matching regular expression logic here. Okay, but just for now, remember regular expression. So we'll cover that next after the Ruby programming concept. Okay, now ultimate goal is to interact with the browser, right? So that's where this Selenium and Water comes in the picture. These two libraries will allow to interact with the various different browsers. Okay, so if I say open browser, right? Given when I'm logged in, so what actions I need to do? I need to actually open the browser because that's my precondition, right? So I need to open the browser, and then I need to go to the login page. If you are writing in a normal way, right? I need to go to the login page or go to the home page, and then try to log in using whatever credentials that I have. So in order to do that, I have to work with two different web drivers. These are web drivers. Okay, Water and Selenium are called web drivers.
The mediators.
Yeah, mediators that can interact with the browser.
Browsers.
Okay. So I will put some more logic here to use these drivers to interact with the browser. Okay, so that's where some of the Ruby programming concepts. How do you interact with these drivers? So you write some programming logic to call these libraries and put some command basically, or do some logic so that you can interact with the router. But this is the technology stack, okay, that we have to build, and the ultimate goal is to simulate the user act, whatever the user is doing. It looks complex, but trust me, once you do one, twice, then it's the same process to repeat.
So whatever I understand, first user story, then get the acceptance criteria. from
Well,
there.
this one you will have, right? Acceptance criteria, you will. Now, if they are following the Atdd, you will have acceptance criteria.
Uh-huh.
Most companies will have acceptance criteria. Now, Gherkin, if the company is big on automation, they will have this Gherkin acceptance test built into the Atdd process.
Okay.
Some companies will stop right there. They will not automate, but some companies like NetJets, they say, nope, we're gonna implement everything end to end by end of 2 weeks sprint.
If they don't want to do automated, then they
Yeah,
can
if
stop
they,
it
if they,
over there.
yeah, then they stop at Gherkin. If they don't want to automate, they will stop at Gherkin, basically.
Oh, okay.
So Hassel, I have a question.
Yes.
When I'm writing down the Gherkin code, maybe in the sprint or stories there, so are we doing any testing?
Yes,
after
you,
that?
yes, you are doing the testing. I mean, you still have some test cases to write. Okay, your manual testing does not go away.
Yeah, means what I'm asking, yeah, manual test cases will be there. What about the testing? Is it like we are doing the system testing?
Yes, that, so you will have, actually, okay, most of the, you have both. Because you still need to test the system, clicking on the buttons and all those things, you will still have those type of
So
tests.
before starting the automation,
No, that one you need software, right?
Yeah.
You still have to do some manual testing. When you
Right,
only
yeah.
testing is used, you need a software. Then only you can do it.
means after you did the Gherkin one for the system testing.
Yes, because you don't remember, this is on day 2, right? This
Uh-huh.
is happening on day 2. You are writing the Gherkin acceptance test and also for getting the approval from the business. You may be able to write some step definition, but you don't have Ruby code because you don't know how it's designed. Right? So you, because here you need to, how do I interact with the text box on the page?
Uh-huh.
What's the name and so forth for the text box? Then only you can write some more logic here. So that one is being designed, right? It's not there yet. So you wait till maybe the day before, or you work with the developer closely to see what they are designing and understand the design, because you need to know the design here at this point. How the page will be built,
Uh-huh.
what are the controls on the page, like what's login page, right? Let's say we are
Yeah.
automatic login. So you need to know what's the name of the control. What would be the username control name? What would be the password control name? What is the login button? If there is a login button there, you need to understand the design.
So if I understood correctly, before any web services or any automation comes into picture, we should be done with basic system testing or unit testing.
If the product is ready.
Yeah, if you in order to do the normal system testing, you need a product, right? Working software.
Yeah.
But here, you're not waiting until the end to build basically your automation test. So on day 3 and 4, you do the design, then you can start writing the actual code that you have. It will fail, right? It will fail if you execute. It will fail because you don't really have a software yet. But as soon as they deploy the software and you run your automation test, it should pass, right? Because that's the expected thing that you will have.
Still asking that after Gherkin acceptance,
Uh-huh.
should we move to the automation or should we do the system testing in between?
But
I
you
think
will
so,
not
yeah.
have software, so
Yeah.
if you start a sprint on Monday,
Uh-huh.
you may not have software or functionality implemented next Monday or Tuesday. Generally 2-week sprint, right? So now everybody are working through it. They may not have code complete until next Tuesday.
So design is not ready.
No, design will be ready. But the
But the
coding,
Code is not.
coding will not be.
Okay.
Yeah, so Tuesday, your automations, once you get software, you execute, when you execute, start passing or failing. But you also need to do some manual testing, okay? It's not like you write automation test and you are done. No. You still have to do testing certain part manually before.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, because the buttons,
The functional. one.
you still need to see, what the name's supposed to be and all the details you need to.
So I have a question. So right now, what we are understanding is mainly when your software is not ready, it's like a, parallel process, right?
Yep, it's a
But in a scenario where your software is ready, where you have a,
Okay.
product like, and then there are ways in a product, and then you are doing automation testing, how it,
No, so when you are writing in the sprint,
Uh-huh.
right? So you are building this automation test, let's say after sprint is done.
Uh-huh.
You have this test will become part of your regression test.
oh, okay.
So you are not recreating anything different,
Okay, got it, yeah.
right? Next time some changes comes, that user story, you're gonna execute the same
It will be
test
there.
because it's there,
Okay, it will be there, in
So,
that case, to be
yeah.
regression test.
right? Unless they change the functionality, you might have to change your test.
Yeah,
But if it should pass otherwise, if they updated by any minor things, your automation, you don't have to change.
got it, yeah.
It's a little bit different because of the process, the Atdd process is a little bit different. But you still have to do both, okay? You can't just rely on automation because this one is very high level from the user standpoint or business process standpoint. Other one is, hey, do they miss the functionality or not?
Yeah,
Right? Those things you still have to basically do it manually,
manual.
certain part.
So that means in any cycle, manual testing is equally like.
Oh, yeah, it's always there.
The
Yeah,
functional.
The need of that is like,
Oh, no, it is.
you're not blindly like go
Alright.
like the automation testing.
Yeah, because you
There
cannot,
is-
right? You cannot automate everything. You still have to visually verify everything
Verify, yeah.
or write some detailed test cases. Just like now.
So both needed at least.
Yes, but both is needed, okay? Both is
The
needed. I mean,
functionality part,
yes.
you need to do it.
in order to produce quality product, yes, both will need it. That's for sure.
But better to know automation in your hand.
Well, I mean, if the companies are requiring automation,
Yeah,
yes, you
it's
have to
more-
know. So.
It's like more faster when you are
That's right.
into regression testing, then
Yeah.
it's more,
Yeah,
but,
That's right. But remember, it's free, right? So
yeah.
Yes.
that's why
another-
companies
But time
are.
saving, because in
Time
manual
saving,
testing, you
yeah.
have to wait,
Yeah.
make the scenarios,
Yes.
just actually,
Mhm.
cases and all, and then do all the steps back and forth, and especially when it is related to the batch, interface connected like, testing, then it gets more complicated.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. I mean, batch is always different now. You cannot automate batch.
You cannot, yeah.
You cannot,
So
okay?
that is manual.
Because that one is still manual. That's what I'm saying. Manual, this is, remember, these are web applications.
Yeah,
You don't have other kind of it. If you are building web apps, yes, you can use
Then you
Selenium
can-
or Water.
But not for.
If it's a Windows-based application or backend batch application or data warehousing projects, you have to do everything.
How to do.
Now, web services, you can still automate using the Selenium and Water. But not everything. Alright. Okay, but that's why companies invest, right? Because they think, okay, this one will help them, because it speeds up the changes,
It
changes
speeds
and
up,
so on.
right.
Now, why they are asking you to develop? Because the QS knows this process of documenting the manual testing and so forth. And that's why they are asking QS to pick up one programming, whatever technology stack is, and go build the automation test. A lot of people think only developers can do that, but no, this is QA's work. And the good thing about Ruby, right? Everywhere is all Ruby coding here. All these three layers, right? The good thing about the Ruby versus Java, it's easy of learning as the syntax wise.
the Ruby one.
Ruby is a lot easier than Java or C# or anything.
So we have to learn this,
The coding part.
Coding.
coding part.
Yes, so we will talk today up to here.
Okay.
We'll stop here, we'll move on to the coding because you're gonna need coding. Coding.
We can do it, don't worry.
I'm at 0 level right now.
We can do
Yeah.
it.
I'm sure you guys should be fine.
Yeah,
But you are not writing software, you're writing automation tasks, so you need to focus on what you need for automation tasks, that's all. We are not building any web apps or anything, so
Yeah.
you guys should be all right. Okay, so that's the overall thing, that's where we will be at end of 7 days or whatever, right? So we are here right now, so just keep this picture in mind and we will move on one by one. Afterwards. Okay, so I was talking about Cucumber framework, right? So there are a lot of, it's a scaffolding, it's a framework, so it has certain ways of building it. So there are a lot of things that goes in and we'll come back to this when we actually start diving into the project in the tools side of thing. But as you can see, there are different directories we have to create. And that's how we will organize the code of writing it. Okay, imagine, I mean, you have 1,000 feature files and thousands of lines of code as well. Okay, so I mean, you have to organize suddenly, write it suddenly. So we'll skip this for now. We'll come back when we actually go ahead. All right, so let me quickly cover the Gherkin side of things. Okay, any question before we dive into this?
no, I don't know.
Anybody online?
No.
Okay, all right, good. I think we might go till 1. I'm just letting you guys know, so if you need to let anybody know, I think it will be 1 o'clock, looks like.
Oh, it will be on.
It will be. Okay, so we know the Gherkin syntax, we are familiar with a little bit Gherkin syntax, but let's talk about a little bit in depth. So we talked about the Gherkin feature file, right? Dot feature file. And how it's organized. It has a feature keyword, it has scenarios, it has given when then for every scenario. And then again, it repeats another scenario keyword and then given when then. But essentially, Cucumber tool can parse Gherkin syntax and execute acceptance tasks. That's what I showed you in the earlier slide.
So it's written white space oriented, what's that mean? White space.
Yeah, white space oriented layer uses indentation to define the structure. So when we talk about the
Why it's
structure,
called white space?
yeah, here, right? So I don't know whatever definition they have, but doesn't really matter, right? So indentation, so given when then has to be in line a certain way so that Cucumber can parse it and create it basically.
Okay,
Yeah, that's how it is. But if you enter like a 3 spaces here, it doesn't really matter. It will ignore those 3 spaces.
where?
Yeah, anyway, like if you have 5 spaces between feature, keyword, and scenario, it will just ignore white space.
Oh,
Oh, ignore the white space.
Ignore the white space.
All the white, I think.
All the white spacing it will ignore.
3 or 5,
So it will look for keywords,
okay,
feature, and then anything afterwards, yes. It will ignore anything afterwards, okay? So if you write something, validate Google search results, it will ignore that until it encounters the next
Scenario.
So scenario, it will have this, but it will ignore all this. It is for our purpose. Because we want to put some comment, right? So it says scenario, this is about simple Google search.
Mhm.
It will not be executed by the tool.
Mhm.
Until it comes here. So it will start with the feature, then scenario, then it will say look for given. Given when then type of thing, right after that.
means doesn't care what spaces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will not.
But maybe that's why the definition written there, white
Oh,
spaces, maybe,
Yeah,
maybe.
all right, let's come back. White space oriented language that uses indentation to define the structure.
Hmm.
So. Line ending terminate statements called steps, either spaces or tabs may be used for indentation. We suggest you use spaces for portability. When we actually create it, you guys will know it. Finally, most lines in Gherkin start with a spatial keyword feature. Right? So, well, most files, I think, lines, it says files, but it's a files, feature keywords.
The files.
They are saved as plain text, can be edited by simple tools, like a notepad, you can open it up and edit it. Doesn't matter. Or you use a tool called RubyMine for development, which is fine. Okay, but Cucumber tool can essentially parse the Gherkin syntax and execute your acceptance test. Okay. All right, so these all are keywords. The good thing about is these are the only keywords that you can use in the feature files or Cucumber files.
We can use for
Yes,
and but
and but and star.
star.
Yep. And we will let's take a look at it. What those keywords are, right? But there are only few keywords that you are worried about.
Mhm.
Okay, so feature keyword. So every feature file should represent a single feature. So as I said, single feature or one acceptance criteria. That's what you should have. Line starting with the feature keyword feature. So you should always have that. So that Cucumber will start parsing, look for scenarios and so forth in the same file. Feature usually contains a list of scenarios. So one scenario or multiple scenario is perfectly fine in the file. Okay. Now every scenario consists of list of steps.
Mhm.
What are steps? Given, when, then.
Given.
Those are our steps. Okay. Given, when, then, but, and. Cucumber treats them all same, but you shouldn't. Here is an example. Now, what it says is, given, when, then, Cucumber really doesn't care what you have. Okay. If you put when here in the first versus given next,
Oh,
it doesn't really matter. Okay. But what it says is you should care because it's easier for readability.
yeah.
Okay, if you put when first and given second, then it gets confusing, right?
But he doesn't care.
Yes,
So the feature is like, I just missed that part, as a customer, I want to pay.
Yeah.
Bill on time, so that service not cancelled. So those are the steps, right?
no, this
No.
is your acceptance criteria.
Oh, okay.
That is
Well,
fine.
you can put anything, right, after feature, but generally, as a best practice, you want to put acceptance criteria. What are you testing? Then all the scenarios goes for the acceptance criteria, then you want to put it in the one by one. One set, second set, third set, fourth set.
So those are the description of feature pay bill, right?
So feature is generally, I don't know why it's called feature there, it should be acceptance criteria keyword, but this is where you want to say, what am I testing?
Yeah.
In this particular, what scenarios are there in this file, what requirements?
Okay.
I got it. Okay. So basically, feature has similar information what in steps we have, but in a.
But this is more like a high level, because
High
I could
level.
have 4 scenarios that goes along with that acceptance criteria,
Oh, okay.
right? So you typically put, hey, what acceptance criteria I'm testing.
Okay, so one feature can have two scenarios also.
Yes, 2 scenarios or 3 or 4.
Okay.
Remember,
Oh.
one that we discussed, that customer one,
Uh-huh.
here in the class has
Uh-huh.
4 different scenarios.
Oh,
You
but that was for one feature.
One feature,
Feature and 4 scenarios.
yeah, feature, here in the file Cucumber, it's called feature, but it's really acceptance criteria,
Got
what
it.
requirement you are
Yes,
testing,
yes.
and what scenarios that goes along.
Okay.
So here. So this is clear, right? Feature.
Yeah.
And the scenarios, how you organizing your particular scenario with the given when then.
So
Right.
it's just nothing but acceptance criteria, right?
Yes, but the
Yes.
tool needs it to be featured.
Okay.
Yes. It's just a terminology
Yeah.
and the tool that you are using. Okay. All right. So
So
this is.
Harshal, these are the criteria for writing Ruby.
No, the Ruby program, we haven't even started yet, right? So this is for their acceptance test. This is how you should be organizing your acceptance test for a Cucumber feature file.
No, but
So-
why, if scenario is there, why feature is there?
because it's a remember, it's a frame. So Cucumber cannot interpret, how does the Cucumber, you can write it in a notepad. If you just write given when then a Cucumber will not, they cannot parse to your file and start the automation from there. Did you get it, Rosie?
No, so this is like the structure.
Yeah, this is the structure. You have to have a feature keyword, right? You have to have a feature keyword. This is how the typical feature file will looks like. So you will have feature keyword. You can put description, or if you can ignore it, that's fine. You will have also have scenario a keyword. Within that, you have given when then.
So we should have a feature keyword first.
Yes, you always have feature keyword at the top in the file.
So pay bill is the feature keyword?
No, feature.
Feature is the keyword.
Feature, this F capital EATURE, that's the key. So if let me show you an example here. So if I have this scenarios here, right? And if I try to run it, automate it, it will not work. What am I missing?
The feature one.
Feature keyword. Now I can write acceptance criteria. What is this test? What am I testing? What scenarios are belong here, right? What scenarios I have?
Adding books.
Yeah, adding books to shopping cart, right? Imagine this is my acceptance criteria.
So you need to describe that again?
Generally, as a practice, you put that in so that you know what acceptance criteria you are testing.
Means like a title of the.
Yeah, title of this file, right?
Yeah.
Because this is I can save it as a ABC or with a shopping cart dot feature. Okay, this is how the Cucumber file will look like. Shopping cart dot feature. It has a feature dot feature. Okay, so I can save it. Now, what am I missing in this file?
You have to.
Scenario.
Right? So every scenario. So I have 3 scenarios, so I need to have scenario keyword for each of them. And then I can write some description for the scenario after that. So here I can say empty shopping cart. Okay, so this is my empty shopping cart scenario. This is what adding a new item in existing shopping. What or description you want to write? That describe it. So it's remember it's a test title. You have a test title, right? In your test detail test, that's what essentially what are you testing? Your title should reflect what is that you are testing.
Then the steps.
Yeah, well, steps are here, right? Given when then.
Given when then.
Yeah. So you have 2 different scenario. I have 3rd scenario. I can put the title or I can leave it empty. It's perfectly fine.
Same book added to my basket.
Now, why the title is important? There is importance why you want to always have a title. Because if there are, when the automation is being executed, and if there are any errors, you can log the title into exception files. So you should always have it as a best practice. Okay, this one you can document it so that you know what scenario is failed, and so forth. So you should always have a title. Okay, here I can put some different title. Now my Cucumber file is good because I have right keyword. Now one thing I will call on you, it's a case sensitive. So if I do scenario, it will throw you an error when it is being executed. It has to be acceptable and proper spec. Same thing with the.
Oh,
I have seen very common.
else need to be capital.
Right. Yep. So it needs to be capital and so forth. Okay.
All the first lines need to be capital there.
The first
No, not
letter.
all first line.
Just.
If you type in a keyword, that has to be make sure properly.
The
I
first letter should be capital.
First letter should be capital. As scenario is capital, given, yes, if I put a G, given, it will give, yeah, it doesn't know what to do with it.
Okay.
Okay, so it will cause an error. So this is given when then, given when then, like that.
Do we need to also explain more further under feature like we just saw before? Right?
Yeah, you can put as much detail as you.
But it is not required.
It's not
right?
required.
As we saw in that slide where.
Again, this is not,
It was,
Because feature, the description and then.
Harsal, what I understood is like the feature keyword is very important. After that, maybe for our understanding, we can put whatever we want.
yes, yes. It's the documentation, right? Because you might be gone from the project. Somebody else is working, you don't know what your scenario
Okay,
is.
got
Yeah, but for scenario, I think other than the keyword, the Gherkin code like given, when, then, these are important.
Well, the title, you probably want to put a description.
Yeah,
or
the title is important. After that, like the format you're writing, given something, when something, then I think these are important.
Yes, because those are your actual steps, right?
Yes.
That's what you are,
Yes.
you want to describe it, you can do it.
yeah. Yep. So is everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's come back.
Description will give more clarity, so something.
Yes, so more documentation you
Yeah.
put in, that will help the next person that's coming in, because you may
like
also
here,
already
it's
there,
like as a
right?
consumer to pay.
Yeah.
bill on time.
Right? Yeah, without that, if you don't have that, then you don't know what are we testing here.
Yes.
What are, yeah.
Your
From which
scenario, what,
scenarios are coming.
that's correct. Okay. All right. So everybody good with the format? So let's take a look at it, scenarios keyword. So we talked about feature keyword, and now we talk about scenario keyword. So again, scenario is one of the core Gherkin structure, right? It describes your core keyword. Every scenario starts with the scenario keyword. Okay, I think we just saw that. Keyword followed by optional scenario title. So title is optional. Each feature can have one or more scenarios, and every scenario consists of one or more steps. So given, when, then are steps. So scenario has to have given, when, then, or at least one step right below that. Okay. So how many scenarios does the below example have? So there are two, right? Two scenarios. How many steps each? Each one has three, right? Given, when, then, given, when. Okay. All right. So everybody clear? All right. Okay. So let's move on to another keyword. So we talked about here. So we looked at feature, we looked at scenario keyword, we looked at given, when, then. But let's take a look at it. What's the scenario outline?
What is back?
Yes, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. So we'll take a look at scenario outline first. So if you have, let's imagine you have this type of scenario. So what's different between these two? This two bottom one. Scenario, eat 2 out of 5 apples. Given there are 5 apples, when I eat 2 apples, then I should have 3 apples, right? It's a simple one. Second scenario says, given eat 5 out of 10 apples. Given there are 10 apples, when I eat 5 apples, then I should have 5 apples. So what's the difference between these two?
They're eating 2 apples out of 5, and the second one is eating 5 out of 10.
I know that's what it is, but what's the difference? What's the common?
The same thing is
Like,
repeating.
It's the same thing, right? Steps are same, just the data is different, right? So it's just remember, that's what you have generally in the testing world. You have the same steps, but you might be supplying different data, right? So copying and scenarios you can quickly become tedious and repetitive, right? So you can write maybe 5 different things. If you have different data, you might create a copy and paste again different thing. So instead of that, that's where the scenario outline comes in the picture. Okay, so you can write the same scenario this way. Again, you have to follow the syntax, greater than, less than, and so let's see what do we have. Scenario outline, eating apples. Given there are, now it says start
Oh, okay.
apples. When I eat, whatever eat. So those are called what is that? The placeholders basically in the cucumber world. So this is placeholder. less than, start, greater than, it's a placeholder. Then I should have left apples, right? Then, so you need to follow this format. Now you scenario outline as always have examples. So examples keyword. This examples keyword. It goes along with the scenario outline. Okay, so let's see what it does. So examples, and then I have the start, eat, and left. 3 different columns separated by pipe symbol. Then I have these 2 different rows. 5, 2, and 3, 10, 5, and 5. So what happens is, Cucumber, when you execute this file in a Cucumber, it will replace these placeholder values, start, eat, and apple, and left, with the 5, 2, and 3, this row.
Okay.
So it will execute and complete the scenario execution, and then it will go to move on to the next row.
Next.
10, 5, 3, you can have 50 rows, it will execute the same scenario 50 times.
Okay.
Right now, it will execute twice, the same scenario twice, with
Because we
different
have
values.
Same, we have data 2 times.
Yep, data 2 times, rows 2 different rows, so it will execute twice. So instead of repeating it, you can create something like this. And work through that. So it's a templated approach, you can call it, with the placeholder. Okay. So scenario outline, it will run the scenario based on number of rows that you have specified in the examples. And it will execute. Now, this is, I think, if you are trying to log in with 5 different users, you can just use this type of approach, scenario outline, with the examples, and write the scenario once.
If there is some negative values, then you will just throw the.
If you have calculation,
Yeah.
right, that you are running, then you can supply different values, see if you are getting the different, the expected output.
Yeah.
This is, then I should have 2 + 2 = 4, so you should say 4, right? So that's where scenario outline is used. Is everybody good? Okay. All right. Let's take a look at background, what the background is. So let's come to this scenario here. Okay. So, so if I'm, so I have, let's say I have this file, right? On the left side. So I have multiple site support. I'm looking at this left section here. So I have this scenario: create account as admin, delete account as admin, edit account as admin. Okay. So given I am logged in as administrator and I am on accounts page, when I create an account, then the new account is created. This is one scenario. Then I have second scenario: given I am logged in as admin, when I am on the accounts page, when I delete an account, the account is removed. Then I have third scenario.
Okay.
So what's common? These first 2 steps are repeating,
Yeah.
right? Because you are logging in as admin and you need to go to the accounts page, and then you are doing different actions. So instead of repeating that, what you can do is you can use the background keyword.
So past 2 lines are repeating.
First 2 lines are repeating, right?
Yeah.
So you can rewrite your feature file this way. You use the background keyword and write those 2 steps, repeating steps, right under background. So what it will do is, for every scenario, the background steps are executed first. Okay. So for every scenario in this feature file, the background steps will be executed first, and then they will come to the next step when and then.
So the common steps will be separate from the
Yeah.
scenarios.
Yep.
And you will put it in the
Yep.
background.
That's it.
So it will run one time, then go by.
Then go to the second scenario, it will again execute these 2 steps and then execute remaining 2. Same thing with the third one and so forth.
So we don't need to repeat. I mean, that makes life easy.
It will be easily, if you have 10 different scenarios, you can organize it a little bit better way.
So Harshal, if I can correlate, it's kind of executing individual functions.
Yeah, You can call it in programming terminology, yes, you can create a function and then call it from different places. But remember, this is a cucumber, right? So cucumber, but the concept remains same.
Yeah, means it's executing the same thing, right? Means the first two lines, then the first function, let's say, again, that's how the programming works, right?
Yes, yes, so in the programming world, you copy these two lines into a function and then you call the function first, right? And then you will have additional things. But again, yeah, concept remains same.
Yeah, because after one function, again, it will go back to the same two lines.
Yes.
Then
yes.
it will then go to the next. It's like that, right?
Yep, programming control goes back to the third line, yep, afterwards, yep.
Okay.
Okay. So that's about background, right? It helps you organize your feature files a little bit better in the scenarios. It will increase readability as well. Okay. Any question on this one? All right, good. All right, so steps. So we talked about feature scenarios, and within each scenario, you will have givens, whens, and then, right? Now, second line is important. It says that cucumber doesn't really distinguish between given, when, then. However, we should for readability. Okay, so readability purpose, it makes sense. Now, givens, the main purpose for the given is to specify the precondition, right? That's the whole idea. And here, one example, given I am logged in as whatever user, specific user. But essentially, it's a precondition. What has to be true before you start executing your step? That's what the precondition is.
What's present there before you start?
Yeah, what has to be true in the system, right? So that's hopefully that's clear, right? You can relate to the precondition. When, again, when is the steps to decide the key action that user performs? For example, in this example, when I am on the home page, when I fill username with Kelly, when I fill password with 123, when I log in. So I'm doing 3 different actions, inputting something in the username, password, and then clicking on login. But here I'm not saying I click on login, I'm saying when I log in. Okay. Again, this is example, you can write your own way, but these are multiple whens I'm using. Okay, so you can have a combination when or multiple whens in the scenario.
You don't have to write
Well, you can, if I use and when I'm on home page and I fill in username and I do something when I log in. It's again, what it says doesn't really distinguish between this kind of steps or keywords. It's essentially, this is for our purpose only. And you will see it, I'll show you one example. It really doesn't matter what's here. Whether it's a given, when, then, doesn't really matter.
It will only see the feature.
It will only see this thing, this verbiage. It will essentially ignore what's before. Okay, so given, you can write it when I am on home page and I fill in username, when I fill in password, it really doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
It will take after when whatever is present, it will take that.
You can say, but I log in. So it doesn't really matter, okay, whatever keyword, it's for readability purpose only.
So I have a question. So in one scenario, so you can write multiple support when cases or given or kind of.
Yep, so I have it in the example here, right?
Okay.
Right, same thing
Okay.
then, right? Right, outcome. But then in the below, you have this example here. So given one thing, given another thing, given yet another thing, when I do certain thing, then I something, multiple thens, multiple whens, multiple givens. Again,
So
you
okay, so if I want to write in one sentence like using then after and I'm doing or so we can use that one in and making an one sentence.
Yeah.
Well, you can, but you have to remember, your goal is to do automation, right?
Mhm.
So you want to properly put your steps.
Mhm.
So for, but yeah, if you can do that, I mean, given
Okay.
one thing and lowercase and another
Mhm.
thing,
Mhm.
else, yeah, you can do that.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
We can do it, but it's not needed.
Well, whatever makes readability
Yeah.
improves and whatever makes
Yeah.
sense to you, you can write it. Right? You don't want to too overcomplicate it or anything, just keep it simple. What's logical, just follow that route.
That's why it's showing both ways.
Yeah.
You can-
So in this example, I use a multiple combination, given one thing and other thing, and yet another thing. When I do an action, then I see something, but I don't see something else.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Makes sense. Logically, you write it. It's you are the QA, so your way of writing.
Your style of writing.
Yep. So there are a few more examples here. Again, various combinations here, there is nothing else, right? I'll let you guys read through it. So here in the second one, right, they have and, or you can use a and or but, basically. So instead of when, here they are using
Yeah,
and.
they use and with the when.
When. So it's a different combination, I mean, if you have several steps, you can write certain ways, given, when, then, something like that.
They're showing all possibilities. of
Yeah,
writing
all
style.
possibilities.
Writing style.
Again, at the end, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll show you one scenario, one quickly. So this is again multiple given whens and then scenario, right?
Mhm.
And when then, so there's nothing new here. The only thing is Cucumber interprets steps beginning with and or, but exactly same. Exactly the same as all other steps. It doesn't really differentiate between them, basically. Okay, so what it says is, again, you can write it, see here, given one thing and when and then, it doesn't really matter.
Mm.
Okay. So in the next slide, I'll show you what it does. Okay. So you can, there is one more option called star or bullets. Is there? You can write it this way as well.
Without using
Yeah.
when given then.
Yeah, you can use any combination. When one thing, star, another thing, star, whatever, doesn't matter. So what's the difference between these three scenarios? I have three different ways of writing at the bottom table.
Mhm.
Is there any different?
Only the middle one doesn't have given when then, that's it.
For Cucumber, when you execute it, it really doesn't matter. It will
All
interpret all same. What I said is keywords are ignored when it only cares about what's in your step, description in the step,
Oh.
what you specify in the step. So if I go back here. So this regular expression, right? So it cares about what's in the middle. Okay. So this is where the regular expression comes in the picture. It looks at the text
Mhm.
and try to find it in the Ruby code where the text is. And then it will start executing Ruby code.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what it is. So what you have given when then star, who cares? It's ignored. Okay. So these all three are same scenario. It doesn't really matter. You can still execute the same code in the backend. So the only thing matters is that everybody understands what's communicated or what's. For the same reason, if you are asking business to approve something, they don't understand this. They might understand this format better. So that's the reason. Because business is to
Make it
approve.
more simple and
More simple.
readable.
More
Yeah,
simple.
more simple, more plain English, more readable.
Obviously, with the stars, they will not understand what's written there. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's better choice to be stay with given than when.
Yeah, definitely, yes. Yeah, because it's readability, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so naming the scenario, again, we said it's optional, but you should name it because first of all, it improves what the scenario is about. You can put the title for every scenario, right?
Mhm.
And second thing, it helps you for debugging and troubleshooting this. Okay, when there is any errors in the scenario execution, you can log that, and it will help you troubleshoot.
Because of the title.
Yeah, title.
Okay.
Yeah, because it says, okay, this title failed, so I can go take a look at it, why it failed,
Okay.
and so forth. So when the test breaks its failing scenario name, that will give you the headline news on what's broken. Okay, the title will help you troubleshoot. All right, finally, one more thing. So you can always add comments within the file. If you want to describe a little bit more further, you can add a comment called using this format. Pound and then type in the comment. It's a good programming practice to describe what goes in the comment. Any programmer would know this, and it's a good practice. Just an additional description given here for the feature, basically. So Cucumber file will allow comment. That's that way, pound and then type in whatever you need. Any question?
I don't understand the pound one.
Oh, so you type in, so if I want to describe the scenario. So I have this feature, right, whatever feature, but I want to put more comments. So I can say pound, this is important scenario, important feature. Please test it.
Oh,
Hello.
means
Additional.
some.
Whatever you want.
You're adding some notes
Yep,
to it.
adding some notes. This is again notes number 2.
Got it.
Notes 2, whatever. You can have multiple lines. What the Cucumber will do, when it reads the file, it will ignore anything that starts with the pound.
Oh,
It
so
will
this is for
ignore.
your- This is for your own.
Own purpose, own readability
purpose.
purpose, yeah.
Why we are doing this.
Why we, whatever we have documented, so
If
you
we
want
have
to,
some past notes towards.
yeah,
this
pass notes
testing.
or anything changed, so you probably generally want to put modified scenario number 2.
Oh.
Yes.
Number
This is-
scenario
it's
2
no
for
need
this
for
purpose.
And you are putting pound sign because so that.
It is
Yeah.
not readable.
And generally, you generally I have seen is people put the date and the comment. So
Means.
on 12/2/2022,
Oh, okay.
right? So if somebody comes in modified, sometime it has a modified by Harshal Patel,
Oh,
something like that.
On this side, yeah.
Okay, so any question on what we discussed? Hopefully you guys are clear about what the Cucumber looks like, file looks like, and what goes in. The given when then scenario, feature keywords, and some scenario outline and background we talked about. Those things.
I have a doubt still over there. Okay.
Sure.
The picture part is done, the scenario, we wrote everything steps are done.
Okay,
Before we move to automation, what you should do in that part? Everything is done, like we got the approval from the business and everything is done,
yeah,
then we'll move to the automation, right?
yes, so if we go back to our,
Still I
Diagram
have
here.
doubt over there.
so we were here,
Yeah,
this
that
is
is
the
good.
requirements, right?
It's done.
Then we
This is
created
done.
this part.
Uh-huh.
Then the next step would be the hookup with the steps with the actual Ruby code
Yes,
to start building the
but
automation.
before you build the automation,
Uh-huh.
we just have to sit down like this or.
No, you still have some manual test cases to write, right? based on the design, because you want to test manually, so you might have to document in the DevOps or Jira. Whatever detailed steps and test cases that you are documenting.
Until the product is ready to.
Yeah,
for the
because you
automation.
still have that part, right?
Okay. Now
Because
I
you still have to do
understand. Okay.
manual process, write your detailed test case with the detailed steps
Mhm.
based on the screen designs that you produce. You might come up here, you might build additional things here. Like this part, you might be writing as well additional code here. You may not be able to hook up to the browser yet because you don't have working software.
So who's going to do that?
That's you.
Yeah.
Everything is done by the automation tester.
Okay. So, okay, by the time like feature level, like we stop and then it is the building of the code there.
Yeah.
For
Building of the code,
Ruby.
yeah. This is where your Ruby programming comes in the picture.
And we don't do immediate after this, after the acceptance.
Yeah, you might have other detailed test cases to write,
Manual one.
like a manual test casing one.
Okay,
So you document it, you still have to document.
okay.
Until the product is ready,
Yeah.
we need to do that, then come to the.
Well, generally, you will start building out step definition. That's for sure, because you can still do it.
Still do it.
You can still do it right after this. You can start building out your step
Step
definition.
definition. The
If
only,
you know the design, then you can start building out the actual backend stuff.
backend step.
So like a login page, right?
Uh-huh.
So if the developer tells you, hey, I'm going to name this field, this XYZ login, username field as a username, password as password, and button as whatever I'm going to name it, then you can start building out your backend stuff. Basically.
Okay.
And we'll work through it. Once we do it, then you will, what other things you can do. But you will do both manual testing as well as automation exercises at the same time. Okay, Parag?
So one question, this will happen when we don't have any test scripts in the automation, right?
Yes.
This or this part?
This second part, yeah.
Yeah, you can still do it. Yeah.
So, okay, we only build when we don't have that, those, those, let me say, test scripts, those language, in the, that system. Then,
No, I'm not sure what you
Okay.
mean by that.
so, if, I'm just thinking this, like, if we have regression, or regression, we will already have the
Software.
software.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
This is
Yeah.
before, yeah. This part you can do it before you have a software, right?
Okay.
This part you can even do it. If you know the design, then you can start building out backend. You just cannot interact with the browser because you don't have the functionality.
Mhm.
It will fail. I mean, you can run it and you will see it fail in the tool. So. Yeah, because you don't have actual parts and pieces hooked up with the browser. Yeah, that's how actually test-driven development happens. They will run it, it will fail. I mean, they all know, okay, it's gonna fail because we don't have a lot implemented.
Okay.
So Harsal, is it like if the product is ready, then we can directly go ahead with the automation testing?
Yeah, if the product is ready, right, you might have to do some minor tweak to your logic, but everything else should be hooked up by the time you will get the software. So what I mean by that is, you don't have to build, you should already have this part built up to here, at least bare minimum. You should already have hooked up the steps definition.
Mhm.
Or they might have the project classes defined, like page objects defined. You
Right.
just final piece hooked up, basically, to interact with the browser. Okay, so, but otherwise you will have probably 70 or 80% should be done, your test wise. So only one day will take you to hook up and then you can start your test, supposed to pass, basically at that point.
And the orders should be same like scenario 1, scenario 2, then the Ruby code will be, okay, for scenario 1, then go for scenario 2, it goes like that, right?
Yes, so generally every feature file, you will have a step definition file.
Uh-huh.
So this file, so there are a bunch of files you can create. Right now, I think it will be difficult for you to imagine how we organize the code, but imagine every step should have matching step definition. So this is called step definition.
Oh.
This is called step definition. Again, you will organize every feature file should have its own step definition file. So like a .rb file, which is a Ruby programming code.
And the system will know that, okay, for scenario one, this is the matching steps.
Yes,
And that will be
again,
something.
you need to
for that.
tell software because you are putting the brain.
Yeah.
So you need to tell the software, hey, for this step, I need to execute this logic.
Okay.
But that's where some of the tools like RubyMine comes into play, which is a development IDE or development
Will be
tool.
mine.
Yeah, RubyMine is a tool that we are going to use in the camp. Which will automatically hook up your step with the step definition. It can generate some code for you. Okay, so it's not like you are writing from scratch everything. That's why people pay money for those type of tools. It's not an expensive tool. It's like a $70 per year license, which is not bad. But the companies use that mainly. Most of the companies who use Ruby Cucumber, they use RubyMine. Okay, so that's the one we will use it. You will have free trial for 30 days. So at least by the time the camp ends, you will be able to complete everything, all the exercise. And if you want to continue using, just purchase the license, which is like $70 for the first year. I think $60 for the second year, and it goes down as you keep it. So
Ruby code is more like Java, or it's not equal Java?
no, it's a Ruby programming is Java, just like Java programming. Yep, it's a programming language.
Easier version.
So I'm going to talk about next what it is and so. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about, hopefully you understand different parts and pieces, right? So I talked about Ruby, Cucumber, Water, Selenium, and RubyMine IDE. This is the technology stack that we'll be using. Okay. So what is Ruby? Again, I'm just going to give you some overview. It's a open source programming language. Open source, right? Just like Java. Java is open source programming language. It is maintained by the developers community. Nobody owns that language. And it's free. Good thing about it's free. So you can download it and have it up and running. But it's an object-oriented programming language, just like Java or C#. Okay. Ruby, you can write this. Now it's a Ruby. So whatever library is written or published, they are called gems. So gems is programming. There are a bunch of built-in functionality. Libraries are nothing but somebody develops something and they publish because it's open source, right? They can say, I want to make this functionality available for everybody in the world. So they publish their library, which is called gem, to the one site. Basically, anybody can download from there. So you have to create the same functionality on your own. You can just reuse what others are developing.
We can search for the built-ins and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we can use.
You can just built-in functionality. You can just download the gem and it's available to your program.
Okay.
But in the Ruby world, it's called gems. Okay, library. In the .NET world, these are called assemblies. In the .NET, Microsoft, like for C#. Java is again classes and a lot of different terminals.
Classes.
Classes are
Yeah.
.NET code, but
Yeah.
those are libraries as well. Now Ruby is it has a very simpler syntax, and it's a natural to read and easy to write. Okay, so it takes away some complexity of Java, like a parentheses and semicolons and all those things goes away in the Ruby. So you focus on just writing the code, don't worry about syntax much, and it's very easy to write. Okay, so I'll go over this a little bit later, but actually let me just cover it very quickly. So in order to do the Ruby programming, we have to install certain things on the machine. First thing is a Ruby development kit. Here, in this example, I have 2.6.6 version, but we're not going to use that. Okay, so I have a separate document for you to download and install. And I have put it on the shared drive as well so that you can easily download all the software that you need. Okay, so I'll provide that document right after I'm gonna cover this part, right? There are a couple of things. So you need to install this first. And then there are certain additional gems. These are the gems that we will install at the same time. I have a video for you to follow.
Okay.
So that way you don't worry, look at this document, but you follow that video. Okay, so whatever I'm doing. So there is a bundle, so here there are a bunch of libraries, right? Cucumber, we will need Cucumber. So Cucumber is a gem in Ruby, it's a library. So we'll install using gem install Cucumber command. Okay, so again, I have explained that in the video as well, so you will follow the steps. Bundler is another library that we will need.
Bundle is the library for Ruby.
Yeah, so we will need certain libraries to configure our development environment for test automation. So there is a Cucumber library, there is a bundler, there is a RSpec, Water, and Selenium. These all are libraries we can install one by one using this gem install bundler, gem install RSpec, and all these commands. So before you guys leave, we will have that everything configured. Okay, so I'm gonna skip quickly. Second tool we will need is RubyMine, and we can download it from the JetBrains website. Okay, and its installation is very simple. We download and install. I have the instruction in the videos as well. You will follow the step by step and you are good. Third part is the drivers. So what we discussed here. So
Those
this
types,
part,
the Water and the Selenium.
right? So we have various browsers, right? So in order for Selenium and Water to interact with this browser, we will need certain libraries, like a Chrome driver, Firefox driver, Internet Explorer driver, or Edge driver, and so forth. So we will need to install those as
So
well.
Chrome driver is for the Chrome, like.
Chrome is to interact with the Chrome. So your test needs to run on Chrome. So you need to say, okay, open this Chrome driver and run the test on the Chrome. Okay, same thing, Firefox and IE driver and Edge driver. So you can follow what's in the video. Okay, not following here.
So you have to pick one.
No, you're gonna download all 3 or 4 what's in the video.
Okay.
Yep, and it says where to install and how to put it as well. So we will go through that here. And let's see. I think that's pretty much it for today. So if you guys are ready, we can do the installation part. Okay, so let me find that installation stuff, and I'll email you. So you log in, connect your computer. Is everybody online good? So look for my email, okay? And I'll send you video. You can start it as well, or I can play it here as well. It's up to you. If you have a headphone, you can follow through. Otherwise, just. So let me pause this.